A reading from the book of the prophet Jeremiah, The Path to Hope. Introduction, Jeremiah, the true prophet. Chapter 26, Arrest and Trial of Jeremiah. At the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, this word came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Thus says the Lord, Stand in the court of the temple of the Lord. To all the people from the towns of Judah who come to worship in the temple of the Lord, you shall say everything I command you to say. You shall not omit one word. Perhaps they will listen and each turn from their evil way. If so, I shall relent and not bring the disaster on them which I intend because of their misdeeds. Say to them, Thus says the Lord, if you will not listen to me and follow my law which I have given you, and pay attention to the words of my servants, the prophets, whom I have persistently sent to you, although you have never paid attention, I shall treat this temple as I treated Shiloh, and make this city a curse for all the nations of the earth. The priests and prophets and all the people heard Jeremiah say these words in the temple of the Lord. When Jeremiah had finished saying everything that the Lord had ordered him to say to all the people, the priests and prophets and all the people seized hold of him and said, You shall die for this. Why have you made this prophecy in the Lord's name? This temple will become like Shiloh, and this city become an uninhabited ruin? And the people all crowded in on Jeremiah in the temple of the Lord. When they heard of this, the chief men of Judah came up from the royal palace to the temple of the Lord and took their seats at the entry of the new gate of the temple of the Lord. Then the priests and prophets said to the chief men and all the people, This man deserves a sentence of death, since he has prophesied against this city, as you have heard with your own ears. Jeremiah, however, replied to all the chief men and all the people, saying, The Lord himself sent me to prophesy against this temple and this city, every single thing you have heard. So now amend your ways and your actions. Listen to the voice of the Lord your God, and the Lord will relent about the disaster that he has decreed for you. For myself, look, I am in your hands. Do to me whatever you please or think right. But be sure of this, that if you put me to death, you will be bringing innocent blood on yourselves, on the city and on its inhabitants, since the Lord has truly sent me to you to say all this for you to hear. Then the chief men and all the people said to the priests and prophets, This man does not deserve a sentence of death. He has spoken to us in the name of the Lord our God. And some of the elders of the land stood up to address all the assembled people, saying, Micah of Morsheth, who prophesied in the days of Hezekiah king of Judah, said to all the people of Judah, Thus says the Lord Sabaoth, Zion will become plowland, Jerusalem a heap of rubble, and the Temple Mount a wooded height. Did Hezekiah, king of Judah, and all Judah put him to death for this? Did he not rather, fearing the Lord, plead with him so that the Lord relented about the disaster which he had decreed for them? Are we now to do this great evil at the cost of our own lives? There was another man too, prophesying in the Lord's name, Uriah, son of Shemaiah, from Kiriath Jearim. He prophesied against this city and this land in the same words as Jeremiah. When King Jehoiakim, with all his officers and all the chief men, heard what he said, the king sought to put him to death. On hearing this, Uriah took fright and fleeing escaped to Egypt. King Jehoiakim, however, sent Elnathan, son of Achbor, to Egypt with others, who brought Uriah back from Egypt and took him to King Jehoiakim, who struck him down with the sword and threw his body into the common burial ground. But Jeremiah was protected by Ahikam, son of Shaphan, so he was not handed over to the people to be put to death. The word of the Lord. A reading from the book of the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 27. The symbolic yoke and the message to the kings of the west. At the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, son of Josiah, king of Judah, this word came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Thus said the Lord to me, make yourself straps and yokes and put them on your neck. Then send them to the king of Edom, the king of Moab, the king of the Ammonites, the king of Tyre, and the king of Sidon, by the hand of the envoys who have come to Zedekiah, king of Judah, in Jerusalem. Give them this message for their masters. Thus says the Lord Sabaoth, God of Israel, you shall say this to your masters. By my great power and outstretched arm, I made the earth, the human beings, and the animals that are on earth, and I give them to whom I please. Now I have handed over all these lands to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, my servant. I have even put the wild animals at his service. All the nations will serve him, his son and his grandson, until the time for his own land comes, when mighty nations and great kings will enslave him. Any nation or kingdom that will not serve Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and will not bow its neck to the yoke of the king of Babylon, I shall punish with sword, famine, and plague, declares the Lord, until I have destroyed it by his hand. Do not then listen to your prophets, your diviners, dreamers, magicians, and sorcerers, who tell you, you will not be enslaved by the king of Babylon. They are prophesying lies to you, the result of which will be that you will be banished from your land, that I shall drive you out, and you will perish. The nation, however, that is prepared to bend its neck to the yoke of the king of Babylon and serve him, I shall leave in peace in its own land, declares the Lord, to farm it and live there. To Zedekiah, king of Judah, I spoke in exactly the same terms, saying, bend your necks to the yoke of the king of Babylon, serve him and his people, and you will live. Why should you and your people die by sword, famine, and plague, as the Lord has said about the nation that will not serve the king of Babylon? Do not listen to the words of the prophets, telling you that you will not be enslaved by the king of Babylon. They are prophesying lies to you. I have not sent them. declares the Lord, yet they are prophesying untruths to you in my name. Therefore, I shall drive you out. You will perish, and so will the prophets who are prophesying to you. I also spoke to the priests and to all this people, saying, Thus says the Lord, do not listen to the words of your prophets who are prophesying to you, saying, Look, the vessels of the temple of the Lord will very shortly be brought back from Babylon. They prophesy lies to you. Do not listen to them. Serve the king of Babylon, and you will survive. Why should this city become a ruin? If they are real prophets, if the Lord's word is really with them, let them now plead with the Lord Sabaoth that the remaining vessels in the temple of the Lord, in the palace of the king of Judah and elsewhere in Jerusalem, do not go to Babylon too. For thus says the Lord Sabaoth about the pillars, the sea, the stands, and the other vessels still remaining in the city, those not carried off by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, when he took Jeconiah, son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon, with all the leading men of Judah and Jerusalem. For thus says the Lord Sabaoth, God of Israel, about the vessels still remaining in the temple of the Lord, in the palace of the king of Judah, and elsewhere in Jerusalem. They will be carried off to Babylon and stay there until the day I punish them, declares the Lord. Then I shall bring them back and restore them to this place. The word of the Lord.